Today's history video will talk about the last year of the Civil War, 1864 to 65. This was truly the first year of 20th century warfare. It was the beginning, really, and the precursor of what became routine in World War I and World War II. Until 1864, at least in the East, the Civil War had been a traditional war of movement, strategy, flanking, enfilading, surprise attacks, sudden reinforcements in the middle of battle. It was a war of movement and of dash and cavalry and élan and all of that. And Lee excelled at that, as did Stonewall Jackson and his famous foot cavalry of infantry that would move so fast you'd swear they were on horses. But in 1864, Grant decided, enough of this. This game is too good for Robert E. Lee. I'm going to reduce this down to a war of attrition. Trench warfare outside of Richmond and Petersburg. And before that, the Wilderness, which presaged the battle in the Argonne Forest in World War I. And really, you began to see the contours of modern warfare, where the offense would fail, the defense would be supreme, and the casualty count would be enormous. Basically, Grant realized that the population disadvantage the South was under was just enormous. The South at the start of the Civil War had 5 or 6 million whites, and the North had something like 20 million population. And then when you took the blacks out of the South and moved them to the North and put them into the Army, about a quarter of the Union Army at the end of the Civil War was black. The manpower advantage was just enormous. And Grant just decided to wear Lee down. And whenever he would attack, if Lee won the battle, if Grant won the battle, Grant wouldn't care. He'd just keep pressing on. He wouldn't withdraw to the camp and lick his wounds and reorganize like McClellan used to do. This is World War I. Buy it by the pound. Go after him and after him and after him. And ultimately, it wore Lee down, and ultimately, of course, the North won the war. Now, of course, the European generals didn't understand what was happening, and the French and American generals went into World War I not having learned the lessons of the last year of the Civil War. But then they had to learn it when these body counts became horrific. Now, next Saturday, we'll be past the Civil War, and we'll talk about the most misunderstood time in American history, Reconstruction, which is historically seen as a disaster. In fact, it was one of the most idealistic attempts in American history that went AWOL, largely because we didn't have the patience to see it through. I'll see you next Saturday, and in between. Thanks.